I struggled with anxiety for 25 years, and I thought it was in the rearview mirror. I haven't had a panic attack, a bout of anxiety, anything really, for about 5 years. And boy, I woke up this morning and there it was. And I think the fact that I woke up feeling so anxious, first of all, is really scary. For me, anxiety would always come in the morning, and it feels like dread, and then it immediately for me feels like I can't do this, and the this that I'm referring to is everything. So I want to talk a little bit about what I'm doing to handle my anxiety and about the importance of emotional flexibility. So as you can see, I am up here in Vermont. It's absolutely stunning. No reason to feel anxious up here. And that's another thing about anxiety, is we make ourselves wrong when we feel anxious. And I just did that. So here's why I'm feeling anxious. I came up here with my family because we've been quarantining outside of Boston for 5 weeks, and thankfully everybody's safe and healthy. And we came up to my husband's family's house up here in Vermont, a place that I love, because we thought a change of scenery would be super helpful for our psyche. And we've been here for 2 nights, and I woke up this morning and I felt so far away from my normal life that it scared the hell out of me. I'm physically far away, and it was a reminder of just how far away emotionally I feel from it, and how much I actually am struggling, how I'm struggling to stay focused, how I'm struggling to work on my own, how I'm struggling to work remote, how I'm struggling to not be around so many people. And I think all of that came together and hit me this morning in the form of anxiety. Now, for me, anxiety is really suffocating. It causes me to panic. It makes me want to run. And so here's some things that I've been doing this morning to work through it. First of all, there's 2 ways I'm going to talk about emotional flexibility. One is being flexible with yourself, so that when you feel something that's uncomfortable, that you're flexible enough to give yourself space to feel it, because pushing it down, denying it, making yourself wrong, it's only going to make that negative feeling grow. It's going to make that anxiety eat you alive. And so I recognized that it was there. And what I do is I immediately say something. So my husband was next to me, and I said something to Chris, and he just listened. And he demonstrated emotional flexibility because he didn't make me wrong. He didn't try to fix it. He just let me have my reality, even though it's not what he's feeling. The next thing I did is I just got out a computer and I just started writing and writing and writing and writing and writing and dumping and dumping. And that helped a little bit. And so then I texted 3 friends. I texted Lisa and Gretchen and Mindy, and said, I am really anxious right now, and I'm struggling, and saying that and going back and forth on text with them was a little helpful. And then I started to pace around the house, because that's what anxiety makes me do. I start to feel like a caged animal. And Chris said we should go for a hike. And honestly, the thought of climbing a mountain right now makes me want to die. So I said no. I didn't want to exert anything. I just know I need to move. And so instead, I'm going to go walk down the valley and do this 5-mile loop that I really don't feel like doing. But I know I need to, because I know that anxiety gets stored in my nervous system. It's triggered by my nervous system. That everything right now feels far away from the life that I was living and the life that you were living. And that's why I'm so anxious right now. And so I'm going to move my body and move it out of my body. And then I am going to just practice having emotional flexibility and allowing the feelings to rise and fall and not do anything about it. So if you're experiencing anxiety for the first time, or if your normal anxiety has been jacked way up, or if it's coming back like it is for me, please be patient with yourself. Take deep breaths, get outside and walk, and by all means, be talking to your friends and family about what you're feeling. Because stored in here, it'll eat you alive. But when you start to speak about it and you start to move it through your body, you will move it out of your body and you will feel better. I know in an hour and a half when I'm done with this walk, I will feel 100 times better. And I know if you pick up the phone and call somebody, or you start journaling, or you put on an exercise video and you move, you will move this through your nervous system and you will feel back in control. I promise. I promise. I promise. I can't promise that it won't come back, but I can promise that you can make it disappear by taking those steps. The two forms of anxiety are overfunctioning and underfunctioning. Now, neither one is better or worse. They're just patterns. And the cool thing with patterns is once you can spot them and talk about them, and you understand them and unpack them, you can start to create mindfulness and a little bit of distance between the things that trigger your anxiety and that coping mechanism kicking in. Because for me, when I get into the mode of do, plan, I got it, I drive myself into the ground. I burn out. And that's exactly what happened this weekend. 6 weeks of basically going into hyperdrive mode as a way to cope with all this uncertainty led me to crash because I'm terrible at asking for help. And my husband, I'll have to ask him how he copes with his anxiety, because he has a really amazing way of staying calm. So overfunctioning anxiety is do. It's giving advice instead of asking for help. It's assuming responsibility for things that aren't necessarily your responsibility. It's managing everybody else's emotions. And I am the master at this. And the other form of anxiety is underperforming. And as I was thinking about this, one of my 3 kids has this form, and I never would have thought it given their personality. Underperforming is when instead of thinking through your issues, you start asking for tons of advice. You push the responsibility to other people to solve your issues. You withdraw, you become paralyzed. And the reason why it's important to really think about what kind of anxiety you have, and what I want you to do is, in the comments, I want you to write down, are you a overfunctioning, overperforming anxiety person? Or are you a underfunctioning, underperforming? And what happens when you are overfunctioning is I rob the people around me of supporting me, of being responsible for themselves, of helping out. I rob myself of the support that I need and deserve. And if you stay in the pattern too long of either under or over functioning, you will drive yourself into the ground. Again, you gotta express these emotions, because burying them has never worked in the history of time. And so what I want you to do is, again, write in the comments, what is your pattern when you feel anxious? Do you over function or under function? And the solution today is very simple. I just want you to recognize the pattern. And for you over functioners, when you recognize yourself going into that mode, take a pause, get into your body, ask yourself, what do I need help with? And who can I ask for help? And what am I taking on that I don't need to take on? And how can I get myself into this moment and ground yourself? And if you are an underfunctioner, same thing. Recognize when you're spinning and asking for advice or overthinking or paralyzed instead of problem solving and getting into action. I hope that helps. I'm so glad I got to take you on the walk with me and YOLO! And I'll see you tomorrow. Do you ever catch my anxiety when I get anxious?
No.
I think you get annoyed.
At least not in the moment.
How is it that you don't catch it? Because I catch our daughter Kendall's anxiety, or our daughter Sawyer, or our son's anxiety. But you seem to be able to insulate yourself from other people's anxiety.
Well, I mean, it's a good question because I do sometimes find myself catching our kids' anxiety, but I don't catch yours. And maybe that's just because of the amount of time that we've had together and the moments, frequent moments often, where I've been the one sitting there with you and trying to extract your anxiety, because that's really the technique that has always been so effective with you.
Can you explain that? Break down what you do. If I start getting anxious, like I did on Sunday, or I have throughout our 24-year marriage, what do you do? Because you have this superpower of being able to remain calm. And the thing that I find the most validating is, even though you don't feel anxious, you are able to validate my reality of being anxious, even though you're not in the same reality.
I mean, without giving it too much thought, I think some of it has to do with the fact that, first of all, touch is huge, right?
What do you mean touch?
Meaning being able to hold your hand or being close and upfront and personal to what you're experiencing, and just pulling what you're feeling out of your mouth. Like that act of inviting you to describe what's going on, to give detail to it, and to almost not let up, to keep like pulling a thread, like what else is going on? What else is there? What else are you feeling? And I think maybe part of the reason why I don't get triggered by it in that moment is because I've seen it work so effectively that once you get it all out,
It's like barfing.
It dissipates. So it's almost as though the calming nature of the question set and extracting that from your brain or from your heart or wherever you're feeling it, I know, or I have a high degree of confidence that it will calm down. It may not just extinguish itself, but it will go away.
So can we break this down for people? Because I'm not very good at that.
I didn't watch your video the other day, so I wondered what you did to actually calm yourself.
I journaled, I talked to you. I then texted my 3 closest friends, Mindy and Lisa and Gretchen. And then I went for a really long walk, which stimulates your parasympathetic nervous system and calms you down. But so technique number 1 is to give somebody a hug or hold their hand, center them with physical touch.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sit up close in front of them. Make sure that you have the as much eye contact as you can have physically with that person.
Okay. I'm realizing that you do this consciously. You sneaky guy.
It's been a few years.
And then the second thing you do is give people the questions that you might start asking the person in your life that's feeling anxious.
Well, I would start with, tell me about your anxiety right now. What are you feeling? What's happening? Not only physically in your body, but of course emotionally. I mean, those are the two main pillars.
And then you keep going, and anything else. And he does that over until I'm literally like the tank is completely empty. You know what else I've noticed, and I think this is a really important thing, is that you don't respond to what comes out of my mouth.
No answers. You cannot provide any direction or guidance or go for the solve.
Why?
Because there is no solve, particularly when you're in the acute moment. There is nothing is going to resolve that right there and then, even if you have the most best, idea ever, which is super tough for guys in particular, I think, because we're so programmed to go for the solve rather than just be with it.
Here's what I just realized at the biggest possible level about why what you do with me when I feel anxious is so genius. Well, anxiety is all about uncertainty, and typically it's about what you're afraid of in the future that's coming that you can't control. And by getting close to somebody physically, even if it's over a video call and you lean in, but you always sit very close to me, or you give me a huge hug when I'm feeling anxious, or you hold my hand, you're grounding me with physical touch back in this moment. And then the questions of extracting it get me to a point where I'm empty and no longer spinning, and I'm right back in this moment when I have nothing left to say. And because you don't either try to discount or solve or invalidate anything that comes out of my mouth, you just get it out, I'm able to get it all out. Because the second you would say, well, you don't have to worry about that, or this, that, and the other, somebody that's having anxiety will start to argue back, which then takes you back into the future fear.
Yeah, then you're jumping into a conversation, which is the last thing that the person who's suffering the anxiety wants to be having.
Since you've done this with me 100 times, and we have kids that have some anxiety, what is it that you've observed when you get somebody back to zero and in the moment? What do you observe in the person?
I don't know. I've never really thought about that. I think what I observe is what you just said, which is people coming back to right now, and how that is in and of itself is such a powerful grounding mechanism because you're when you're right here, you're out of your head. You're not thinking about yesterday or tomorrow or wherever the source of that anxiety may be coming from. You're present to your physical space and surroundings, and that, I think, I know it has a profound effect on calming it, not necessarily extinguishing it, but certainly calming it.
I think that's your superpower. I really do. Like, you are the most grounded, calm person in my life. And I wonder if it's the years of having a meditation practice and being a practicing Buddhist that has trained that skill in you.
I think so. I mean, I've never sat down to think about where it comes from necessarily, but yes, in Buddhist tradition or practices, completely just being in observance and the act of deep listening, not just, opening your ears, but really listening for what is being said is totally, that's right up a Buddhist alley for sure.
Wow. Now I know why our kids like you more. I'm more fun, but you're the one that grounds us all. Good morning. I'm talking quietly because my daughter's sleeping. I woke up this morning and I was feeling really anxious. And what that means for me is the second that I wake up, my heart is racing and I start feeling like something's wrong. And I know this feeling because I've had anxiety for decades. It doesn't come around that much anymore, but when it does, oof, it takes me right back. So I wanted to just grab the phone and show you what I do when I wake up feeling anxious. First of all, rule number 1, do not, under any circumstances, lay in bed if you wake up and you feel anxious about something. You have got to use the 5-second rule, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Get up, get out of bed, get moving, because if you can get up, you can get going. If you can get going, you can get dressed. If you can get dressed, you can move your body. If you can move your body, you can then move your emotions. If you can move your emotions, you can then move your mind. If you can move your mind, you can move your mood. So one thing leads to another. Number 1, get up. But rule number 2 is remind yourself that you're okay. Talk back to the anxiety. Why was I feeling anxious? Well, I was feeling a little anxious because I'm out here in Los Angeles to move our daughter back into her sophomore year of college. And I'm gonna miss her. I'm flying home today and I'm just sad. I'm sad that I'm leaving her. And all goodbyes, all transitions always bring up this sort of fear and this unsteadiness in me, because your anxiety is gonna get worse if you allow yourself to keep thinking the negative thought. I just kept saying, I'm safe, she's safe, we're okay. It's okay to be sad. You're gonna see her in a couple months. And the anxiety started to disappear. 3rd step, I want you to get your exercise clothes on. That's right, once you get up and you get going, get your exercise clothes on. The next thing you're gonna do, make your bed. I'm gonna do that as soon as I'm done making this video. She's still sleeping. I'll still make my side of the bed even though she's in that bed, because I make my bed for myself. It's a little promise I keep. When I make my bed, I give myself a gift because I will be lying down in it, and it has gives me a beautiful place to dream tonight. And even though I'm in a hotel right now, I'm still gonna make my bed because it's a habit. And habits are really amazing patterns to create in your life. And the thing about a good habit is it creates a solid foundation for you. So by making the bed, I am showing myself that the pattern that I normally go through is right here, even in a moment of anxiety. Now, what am I gonna do after? I'm gonna move my body. Now, I don't have a yoga mat in this hotel room. That's all right. I'm gonna come right over here to this wood floor, and I'm gonna do some yoga right here, because moving my body moves the anxiety out. And then I'm gonna sit down and I'm gonna move my mind. And this is the final thing. The way that I move my mind is I typically use the 5-second journal. But this morning, the way I'm gonna move my mind is I'm gonna do a brain dump, and I'm just gonna pull out a piece of paper. It doesn't have to be fancy. I'm probably gonna use this piece of paper right here. And I'm going to write down every single thing that is on my mind. You don't have to let anxiety hijack you. You can meet those moments, whether those moments are moments when you wake up first thing in the morning and you feel anxious like I did this morning here in Los Angeles, or whether it's anxiety that comes at night, or the anxiety that sort of is your companion right now during the day. Anxiety is a normal part of life, and by having a simple process for meeting it and not reacting to it, but responding to it, you will see a profound difference in your ability to move through your life and face the roadblocks and obstacles that life throws at you, and just keep rolling down the highway. It's an amazing skill. You wake up and it's the middle of the night and your mind is just spinning. You're thinking about everything you need to do, or you're thinking about a worst case scenario, or you suddenly remember something that you had forgotten. Does that ever happen to you? It's been happening a lot to me, where I wake up and I'm like, oh, and then I'm in the darkness. And in the past, when that's happened, I have felt like a pot roast, marinating in fearful thoughts. But I've been using this technique recently that I wanted to share with you because it is extraordinarily effective. If you wake up in the middle of the night and your thoughts are racing, or you're worried, or you're overwhelmed, or maybe it even feels physical, like your heart sort of seizes up, or you feel like that kind of gasp for breath as you wake up, don't lay there. Those thoughts will come, but you do not have to let them go over and over and over again. You don't have to let the anxiety and the heaviness come in. Interrupt it. Quietly take control in that moment. Close your eyes and say, I'm okay. I'm safe. It's gonna be okay. And simply saying those words to yourself is a remarkably effective way to get the worries out of your mind, to slow down your racing heart, and to remind you of a simple truth. It will be okay. And you know how I know it will be okay? Because you're watching this video, which means you have survived the most challenging and hardest days of your life. You have.
The question is, how do you deal with the anxiety that comes from waking up and being on a roll and realizing that when you're making things happen, it's easy to look back and realize how much of your life you wasted. And that makes you present to how potentially little time you have left and how much there is to do in the little time that you have. I can so relate to this. So relate to this. The few things I want to say about this is that I don't think that our experience of feeling anxiety about getting it all done before your life is over, or getting it all done in the time that you have, I don't think it's unique. I think that that is something that starts to happen when you feel like your life is on a roll and you're not present to misery, but you're actually present to power and joy and all the cool possible things that you could do. Does the anxiety, or how do you make the anxiety go away? I don't think you can. I think that that is a very normal thing to feel when you're a big thinker and you become present to the fact that when you put in the work and when you focus, you really are capable of creating just about whatever you want in your life. And that's both empowering and daunting and terrifying as hell. And so you can't get away from that anxiety, but you can respond to the trigger. I often feel what you're talking about when I'm on an airplane. And maybe it's because I feel very vulnerable and out of control when I get on a plane and I click the buckle and I realize this puppy could go down. And then I think about, okay, I spent 49 years here. There's so much more I wanted to do. So I can relate to this. So there's two things to this. One is being present to time passing and the fact that we're all gonna die and that your life is a gift. When you get present to that, that's the biggest motivator on the planet. And when you feel one of those moments, what I do is I shrink it down and I try to find something in this moment that I'm incredibly grateful for, so that if it were to end right now, then all would be well. I think about the sunset I'm looking at. I find a picture of my kids and my husband. I think about, the lives that have been touched by the 5-second rule. And that gratitude in the moment allows my mind to not go psycho thinking about the big vastness around life and those big topics. So that calms me down immediately. That's number one. Number two, I think a slightly different question than, it's probably anxiety, but I think it has more to do with momentum and how when you start to get unstuck and you start to see things happening, you'll notice that things feel like they start moving faster, as if you are on a treadmill and somebody has secretly come up and turned it up on you. And there are days where we're moving through our day, like this morning was one of them. We're getting ready for this live training, and all of a sudden I caught myself almost about ready to hyperventilate because I wasn't present to this. I was present to what happens when we have 1,000 people show up and where are we going to hold? You kind of speed it up on yourself. So when that happens, I know that I'm in the future, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I need to be right here and right now. And that when you start having big things happen and when you start feeling unstuck and when things start moving, the momentum, because an object in motion tends to stay in motion, your anxiety will make it roll faster. That will not make you effective. You have to slow it down immediately. Just in the case of getting overwhelmed by the big themes in life, when you start to feel like things are going too fast, oh my God, I don't have enough time, I don't have enough time. No, yes, you do. Slow it down, okay? I'm always looking for new ways to explain the power of the 5-second rule and the power of 5-second decisions. And I read something that Tim Ferriss said that really resonated with me. And he had this one line buried in a podcast somewhere that just jumped out, and it's stuck. And what he said something about how there's a gap between the world and the things that trigger you and your response. And your entire life is that gap. When you start to, this is not what he said, I kind of identified this gap, and I, of course, intrinsically was like, well, absolutely, that's the 5-second window between instinct or stimulus and your reaction. And when you start to understand that your whole life plays out in this 5-second gap, and that there's a gap that's 5 seconds long between fear and courage, and there's a gap that's 5 seconds long between self-doubt and confidence, that is your life. And what's super cool about understanding that your whole life is inside this gap is it's so small, everybody, that you have the ability to control it. Life's always gonna throw triggers at you, and there will always be all kinds of cool things that inspire you, your wisdom, and you get to choose what happens in that gap. Do you succumb to an excuse, or do you push yourself forward? When you start to speak up in business, you'll be shocked at how you start to speak up in your relationships. When you start to make hard phone calls, whether it's in a selling situation, you'll be surprised at how you'll start to close the gap and have hard conversations in your personal life. And so that gap is everywhere, and it's the same everywhere. And when you start to go to work in controlling how you live in that gap between stimulus or idea and your response, that's where the magic is. And that's what you're experiencing.
I understand that kids can feed off our vibes, and being a super anxious person, I really try not to put this into my kids, but they feel it and then they learn my craziness. Exactly. How can I keep my anxiety to myself so they won't struggle with it? You can't keep your anxiety to yourself because it's an energetic thing, and your kids aren't stupid, they feel it. So this is why it's so important for you to do a mindset reset. You need to go to war against the way that anxiety is hardwired in your body, because everybody feels it around you as much as you think you're being a chameleon. Go back and watch all of the videos in the Mindset Reset series on anxiety. So that's videos 13 to video right now, and really dig deep on identifying the triggers and coming up with anchor thoughts. One of the greatest gifts that you can give to your kids is quieting your anxiety and showing them that, yes, you can change how you think, you can change what you worry about, you can change your responses to things, and that will change your life. The other thing is, it is paramount that you rewatch video 22. Video 22 is a training on how to help your kids with anxiety. And here's the interesting thing about the training. It's not about your kids, it's about you. In doing this program and in quieting my own anxiety after 2 decades of struggling and having 2 kids that struggle with anxiety, I have come to realize, having dug into the research, that I, being somebody who's anxious, was doing exactly the opposite of what you should be doing when you have kids with anxiety. I was doing everything wrong. I was telling my kids to calm down. I was swooping in and trying to fix everything. I was letting their nerves get me all amped up. I mean, whoa, completely wrong. And so it has been profound for me to learn how to quiet my anxiety and not get triggered when my kids get worried. It has been profound for me not to swoop in and fix everything. It has been profound for me not to get angry. That's the other thing that happens with me, is that I get angry when my kids get anxious because it triggers something in me too, and I get frustrated that they're anxious. It's a weird response, but it's true. And it has been super empowering for my kids. In fact, I just had a incredible weekend with my daughter, who had an audition at the Thornton School of Music in LA. And we have been fighting all the way up until the audition because she's anxious. I mean, this is the moment of her life to try to earn a spot at the school of her dreams. It's been triggering my anxiety. And my business partner, Mandy, who is a genius, she should be on camera doing this training right now because she was coaching me just a couple days ago. She basically said, Ken is going to freak out. And your job, Mel, when you're with her, because this is the biggest audition of her life, is not to buy into it. Don't try to fix it. Just support her. Validate where she's at. Offer her a Ricola if her throat hurts. Don't be like, oh my God, you didn't get enough sleep. If she starts to go, I'm nervous, tell her, of course you are. This is so exciting. This is going to be really exciting. And you're prepared. You've been preparing for 12 years. Just validate and don't buy in. Validate and don't buy in. And I'll tell you what, she also said, and expect it, because she's the kind of kid that this is how she works through her nerves. And you know what was amazing? First of all, she did freaking spectacular. I'm super proud of her. She was the best version of herself. And so regardless of what happens, she will feel good knowing she did absolutely everything she could to put herself in the best spot. And you know what? That's exactly what you want for your kids, right? When those moments rise up, whether it's a test or it's an application or it's a performance or it's something related with resolving something with your friends, you want them to be able to deal with uncertainty and have the best of them show up. And that's exactly what happened. And the only reason why that happened, besides the fact that she's been preparing for 12 years and she's an awesome kid, is that I got out of the way. I didn't try to fix anything. I didn't react to the nerves. And just as Mandy predicted, it was like this all weekend. I did the hardest thing in the world for a parent. I didn't try to fix anything. Just validated where she was, gave her a little encouragement, gave her a little nudge forward. We didn't have a single fight. Do you understand? Since this kid's 18 years old, I think that's the first 48 hours of our life where we have not had at least one bickering match, thanks to my anxiety and her anxiety. And it's all because of these tools. So thank you, Mandy, for giving me that incredible coaching. Go to video 22 and rewatch it. It'll change everything. There is a major difference between a clinical anxiety disorder and the rise of worry and anxiety that is troubling pediatricians, that's troubling parents, that's troubling grandparents, that's troubling teachers around the world. And if you have a child who is starting to have the kind of worry or anxiety that is causing them to no longer be able to be themselves or to do the things that they used to be able to do, like get out of bed, go to school, eat, hang out with their friends, go to sleepovers, if they are starting to withdraw from life, that's not just worry or anxiety. That is a much deeper hole that your child is falling into, and it is incredibly important that you go seek one-to-one counsel from your pediatrician. That's where you start. And that you get your child the one-to-one help that they need. Because what we're going to be talking about today is what anxiety is and how, as a parent, you cannot buy into it when it is the more standard form of anxiety that kids reach for when they're feeling uncertain or they feel out of control. We're going to talk about the need to validate where your kids are and the fact that the only thing that works is to come up with a process, to do a lot of planning, and then to practice the plan. Because when it comes to anxiety and worry, it is critical that you realize that you've got to get out of the habit as a parent of trying to fix what your kid is worried about in the moment, and to pull back and start to teach your child the skill of being able to tolerate uncertainty, the skill of being able to problem solve when they start to get a little bit scared, the skill of being able to ask for help when they're in situations that make them feel worried, instead of just worrying and being anxious and getting you to fix the situation for them.
This is a collective issue. And if you're scared right now, if you've lost your job, if you're worried about running out of money, you're not alone. 58% of Americans have less than $1,000 in savings. So if you're worried about money, if you don't have the savings to see yourself through the end of the summer, you're not alone. You're in the majority, which is why I want to talk about this. We're going to talk about the 5 things I want you to do. Everybody needs to stop and accept the new normal. What does that mean? In my mind, the new normal means the end of this year. The new normal means that you want to stop and you want to assess if this is going to go on in terms of self-isolation for a couple months, which I think it probably will, and then we come out of it. It's going to take a little bit of time. Number 2, I need you to face your fear and get the facts. This is the most important part. You ready? I want you to pull 2 months of your bank statements, print them out, and then go through them. And you're going to need 2 things. Get a highlighter and get a pen. Highlight all of the deductions from your account. That's going to tell you where you're spending money, and then make a list of all of those businesses. Now that you've highlighted all the deductions and you have listed all the businesses, now it is time to pick up the phone and get proactive. That's step number 3. Now we're going to go from being paralyzed to proactive. So here's what I want you to do. Anything you don't need, get rid of. If there is a subscription to something that you don't need, get rid of it. If you don't go to the gym, it is time to face reality, everybody, and figure out what apps are charging you that you didn't even realize. Is your kid's Xbox attached to your credit card? Now is the time to take control of this stuff, everybody. And now here's a really great tip for mindset. Pretend that the bills that you're looking at and the financial reality that you're looking at are either your best friends or your brother or sisters. Why? If you pretend that the bills that you're looking at or the financial reality that you're looking at is somebody else's, you leverage the power of objectivity, which means you and I could look at somebody else's bills and be like, oh my God, dude, you got to get rid of that cable bill. Oh, what the hell? We would have a level of objectivity and boom. And so you can hack that in your own mind when you look at your bank statement. Don't make yourself wrong. And then say, if this were my brother, my sister, or my best friend, what tough love would I give them right now? What would I cut out? And then here's the final piece of advice. You have to check your ego at the door. This isn't happening to you. It's happening to the world. This isn't your personal crisis. This is a global crisis. And I need you to take comfort in that. Everybody is facing some level of crisis. This isn't unique to you. And inside of that is an enormous opportunity, because collectively we're going through something. And collectively people are rallying at a local level. And there are resources available to help you that have been launched in the last week. So this is a time to check your ego and to ask for help, whether that help is from your family, or it's from your friends, or it's from your neighborhood, or it's from your local government, or it's from the local food pantry. If you've been laid off from a job and you're worried about money, not every business is shrinking. There are businesses that are growing. Walmart just announced that they are hiring 150,000 temporary workers. The Dollar Tree just announced they are hiring 25,000 workers. Domino's is looking for another 10,000 people. Grocery store chains are looking for people. I want you to lower your anxiety now and know that you accepted the new normal. You faced your fears and got your facts straight about where you stand. You moved yourself from being paralyzed
to opening those bills, to making those calls, to making those asks and being proactive. Leverage the power of objectivity. And finally, you checked your ego at the door in this moment and you asked for help, or you applied for a job that you normally wouldn't apply for. That is what is going to get you through, because that is what resilient people do. You do what is necessary in the times that you are facing. Typically what happens when you're dealing with anxiety that stems from a fear of social situations is the fear is triggered by this opinion that something bad's going to happen, that you're going to face some sort of rejection, that people are going to judge you. And if this is the case, you are dealing with something that you really should get some help with, because you may actually want to join the crowd, but it's your nerves and it's your fear of rejection and judgment that keeps you from doing it. And so here are some quick signs that this is you. Number one, you feel anxious because you think something embarrassing is going to happen. Or maybe in the past, you had something embarrassing happen. And so it's sort of you relive it over and over and over again in your mind as you're about to step into another situation that's similar. When you are at a party, you avoid talking to people that you don't know or have never met or don't know well. Another thing that you might find is that you start to fixate and worry about things that we all do, like forgetting somebody's name or sneezing in the middle of a class, or everybody suddenly turning and looking at you and you forgetting what you were going to say and then your face turning bright red. Maybe you are worried because you're worried about going to the bathroom while you're at this big party, because you have nerves about having to go to the bathroom in public. That's actually pretty common. Maybe you find that you're at these parties, but you're fidgeting and your leg is shaking, or that you're constantly looking at your phone. You're constantly gripping your phone. Instead of being at the party, you are managing your fear about what's going to happen or something bad happening by burying yourself in your phone and texting people who aren't there. Or finally, you are fixated on the idea that everybody is thinking about you and that you assume that people don't like you. If these are starting to be like, God, that's me. Every time I do go to the bar, I'm assuming people are judging me. Wow, when I get invited to a birthday party, I have this weird feeling that they actually didn't want me there. This isn't you disliking something. This is dread and fear that falls into the zone of anxiety around social settings.
Anxiety always begins with a worry. Always. It begins with a thought that is triggered by something. So if you suffer from anxiety, you wake up in the morning and your mind spins. You lay in bed at night and your mind spins. You walk into work and you feel anxious in your body. Interestingly, another major trigger is being home or going home and that moment right before your partner walks in the door. If you feel anxious when your partner's about to walk in or you're about to walk into your own home, that is a major signal that you are in the wrong relationship, that there is something incredibly off and you either need to get into counseling, but that is one that we hear a lot about.
Wow.
Because you're walking into a situation that feels uncertain.
Yeah.
A lot of people, by the way, had parents that were abusive or parents that were yellers. So they also are experiencing ghosts from the childhood of it's 5 o'clock, dad's about to come home and pour a drink and everybody's on edge.
Yeah.
So write down the triggers, okay? Because having kind of the triggers ahead of time will help you come up with a plan for how you're going to catch yourself when your mind defaults to the automatic ways that it thinks. Then what I want you to write down next to the trigger is what exactly are you worried about? So having the trigger and then what do I worry about? I worry that my boss is going to yell. I worry that my partner's going to yell. I worry that I'm going to get in trouble. I worry that, my friends are going to laugh at me. I worry that I'm going to be whatever the it may be. Then what you're going to do is you're going to write down what I call an anchor thought. An anchor thought is something that weighs you down and it makes you excited. And so here's how the strategy works with the 5-second rule. The next time you're in a situation, and let's just use the example of pulling into your own driveway or your own apartment, and maybe you've got issues with your boyfriend or girlfriend or your roommate, and that makes you unsettled. The second you pull in and you feel the trigger, you're going to go 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, because I want to interrupt your mind from going into the I don't like what if I, and then you're going to drop in the anchor thought of the last time that you and your roommate really got along well, or the last time that you stood up for yourself and it went fine. And
or your puppy.
Yeah, or a puppy or whatever. And you're going to say, I'm so excited to deal with this.
Yeah.
And then you're going to get out of your car, even though your body is going to feel a little unsettled and your mind's going to race. Go 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. If you start to be like, but what? And then walk in the door. And what I'm teaching you to do is to not let your mind hijack you.
Right.
And it's very important because there's a very tight nexus between your habit of worrying and spiraling your thoughts and the way your body starts to amp up. And so we want to settle your mind so we don't agitate your body. You got it?
Yeah.
And so if you start to practice that over and over and over and over and over and over and over again, and for you 18-year-olds that are watching this, use this with the nerves that you have about what you're going to do with your life. Use this when you catch yourself worrying about college applications, because worrying about the applications won't get them done. Worrying about what your friends are doing won't make it happen. Worrying about what you're going to be doing when you're 25 or how you're going to make money, it's not going to help you make money right now. It's only going to make you miserable.
Right.
So 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, cut off that habit.
Yeah.
That'll stabilize your body, and then go to a vision of you at the age of 25, driving a car that you think is cool and hanging out with a friend that's cool and saying to yourself, I'm so excited because I know I'm going to figure it out. Because you don't need to worry about that right now.
Yeah.
But it becomes a habit that destroys your year this year. Okay, so here's the barrel. So one of the things, oh my God, you filled this up, Chris? Chris put it to the top. Shit. Okay. So the thing is that there's there's 3 actual benefits in terms of anxiety. So number 1, every morning when I wake up, I know that I'm going to climb in this when I'm here in Vermont. And I already dread it. How many of you have things that you dread in life? That you think about it and you immediately feel that wave of, oh, I don't want to. So simply knowing that there's something that I'm going to force myself to do that I don't want to do, and feeling that wave of resistance in my body and having the just willpower to push through it, the personal commitment that I'm going to do it, even though I don't want to, that's breakthrough number 1. Because that same resistance of, oh, I don't want to, is what used to keep me in bed in the morning, feeling anxious and letting my thoughts spiral. So simply just saying to myself, I'm going to freaking do this, even though I don't want to. I'm going to finish my shower with a going cold, even though I don't want to. That's breakthrough number 1. And these are skills that you can use everywhere, everybody. And if you get questions, Chris, just hammer me with them. Breakthrough number 2 is when you actually get dressed and now you're out here. My feet are freezing. There's still snow on the ground. It's probably 40 degrees here. I'm standing here without a jacket on. My husband has on a hat and a vest, and pushing through and climbing in is breakthrough number 2. Breakthrough number 3, when it comes to taking control and healing my trauma and my dysregulated nervous system, and learning that I can, in any situation, flip from a state of stress and anxiety into a state of, okay, I'm okay. Soothing myself. It's a superpower. And so what you're going to witness is you're going to witness me climbing in there. And the second I climb in, it's fucking freezing. And so you're going to see me tense up for real. And then I'm going to blow out the air and submerge down to here. And here's one more thing. A lot of you are asking, but I have Raynaud's, but my hands get cold. I have Raynaud's, which is a circulatory issue that's related to arthritis. I didn't want to try this because I was afraid that my hands would get even worse, that the numbness would get worse. It's actually getting better by safe cold exposure. So I'm going to climb in here. You're going to watch me breathe through this. And then Chris, you can have them ask questions. And I'm going to stay in there for a minute. Okay. You don't have to be a superhero. You don't have to do it for 10 minutes. Just simply knowing that you've made A, the promise to do this and dreading it. That's breakthrough 1. B, stepping into that shower or that tub or stepping outside. That's breakthrough 2. 3, feeling the pressure and the wave of anxiety hit you and breathing through it. That's breakthrough number 3. Every single one of those, you are building the muscle, everybody, of knowing that you can stand in discomfort, you can feel resistance, you can feel waves of anxiety, and you have it within you
to get yourself through it. All right, here we go. Yes, I'm dreading this. This is really full. Why did you have to fill this up?
You're just going to press it all out. It's all good.
I've never seen it this full, you guys. Like, my heart's racing. I do this all the time, and every time I go in, I know it's going to suck. That's one of the things about this. You never turn on the cold water in a shower. It feels good. Do we have a question?
So one question is, do you breathe through your nose or your mouth?
I breathe through my nose. I would watch the videos, but I breathe through my nose, 8 seconds, breathe out. But I breathe out of my mouth to get in. Okay, here we go. Because now I'm starting to feel a major wave of anxiety.
Other people are anxious for you.
Anxiety spreads. Anxiety spreads. Okay, okay, here we go. Holy shit. Holy shit. Okay, I feel like... No, it's not warm. It's freezing.
I think everybody is shocked. They have no questions for you at the moment. One question is, where'd you get the barrel? And you can see right here,
Ice Barrel. Okay.
the brand is Ice Barrel. You can find it online. Another question is it easier the longer you're in?
No.
Can't you get a cold from this?
I don't know. I don't know if you can get a cold from it. What I'm experiencing is my hands and my feet are tingling. My skin feels super tingly, like pinpricks all over it.
When in chronic pain, how long do you do this for?
I don't know. I think you need to talk to your doctor.
My understanding is that anything between 2 and 5 minutes is maximum required, because after 5 minutes the value sort of dissipates.
I've actually never been in it longer than 4. I typically stay about 90 seconds. What happens the longer you stay is that you're like, when I first got in, you guys, there was this moment when I was in labor with our first daughter where the contractions were so scary and my heart was racing and my mind started to spin. And I thought, I can't do this, I can't do this, I can't do this, I can't do this. And thankfully, the videos started.
Is it hard to calm your breath?
In the beginning it is, but as you noticed, I went from really labored breathing in and out of my nose to signal to my body that I'm okay and to shut my fucking mind off.
How come you are not shivering? That's your breath controlling your body, right?
I'm shivering in the water a little bit. But did you guys notice that like 30 seconds in, I went from like really labored breathing to being pretty calm? I mean, I'm not enjoying this, but my body's calm. I don't feel any anxiety. I feel discomfort. I mean, it's freaking freezing in here, and I'm starting to shake a little bit, but I'm not feeling a wave of anxiety. My heart's not racing. My thoughts are basically at the mountain. Like, look at that view, you guys.
Yes.
And so I'm shaking and I'm cold. I'm really cold, but I'm not scared. And I'm not like, I gotta get out of here, I gotta get out of here, Even saying that made my heart race. Let me get back calm again.
Been in for a while.
Any more questions? 90 seconds is plenty. 90 seconds is enough for me.
Would you have a hot bath now?
But I don't need a hot bath.
Is it okay to do a cold shower before bedtime?
Oh my gosh, you get a great night's sleep.
It's the best before bed.
I think a cold shower, honestly, everybody, is harder than this, because only having my head or my shoulders hit the cold water feels like my pins. Now I'm shaking.
What do you do after? Why don't you show them what you do after when you climb out?
Here we go.
Whoa!
I feel like we need like a rail, because
Yeah.
I do feel shaky. Now, you kind of get the horse stance to get the blood back in here, and then you wave your arms around to get the blood flowing, because all the blood went to like my heart and my brain to try to keep me warm. And I'm getting the circulation going again.
Activate.
Now see how red my arms are? That's the blood coming back in. And ironically, I'm kind of warm. Let's go inside, because I need to get a towel. Woo! Do you have any other questions? Other questions while I'm soaking wet? Other questions?
How many minutes for a beginner?
I tried to just do for a minute. Not in the shower. For the shower, I did 30 seconds. The first time Chris and I did it, though, you guys, we did it with like in a workshop. So they wanted us to go 90 seconds. But if you have a friend there supporting you, try to go for a minute. And I didn't bring my hands down for a long time, but now I put my hands down and I shove them in between my thighs, which are basically like meat mittens. I just give them work on there.
There's a lot of questions about, can you have a heart attack? And if I had open heart surgery, can I do this?
You have to talk to your doctor, everybody. If you have any concern about your health or your heart or stroke or any kind of health condition, please talk to your doctor, and please do this with somebody who's supervising you, who's been trained in cold exposure therapy, to be safe.
Is it okay to do this daily, like therapy?
Yeah, like a meditation practice. I literally just did yoga, and then I finish my exercise by going in there for 90 seconds. And I hate it every time, but every time I do it, I literally access this switch inside of me.
Why is your skin red?
I think my skin is red because when you feel waves of anxiety, or you're in a really stressful or fight or flight or emergency situation, your body sounds an alarm, okay? And if your thoughts start to spin, your blood goes to your major organs, to your brain so you can hyper focus and pay attention, and to your heart so that you can run faster. And so when I get out, I believe that my arms are red because the blood is starting to come back and circulate through my body again. And so one of the reasons why this is important is because, again, there are good reasons why you have anxiety and waves of anxiety. When you feel a wave of anxiety before a test, for example, or before a big interview, and you get nervous and you feel that sort of that alarm go through your body, your heart races, your armpits sweat, and you're like focused on everything, it's because right before an interview or right before a test, your body's sounding alarm. Hey, this is important. Pay attention. When I step into that ice cold water, which is literally about 34 degrees, the second you get into cold water, it could be life-threatening. So your body sounds an alarm. Hey, it's important. Pay attention. Do not stay in here long. And so the blood goes from your digestive tract and from your limbs to your heart and to your brain because it's trying to keep you alive. When I started to breathe, and as you watch the video, if you're just joining us now, if you go back, you'll watch me. I get in, I have a wave of anxiety because I'm in ice cold water. So my body sounds the alarm, get out, this is dangerous. I submerge, and then I breathe myself into a state where I'm telling my body I'm okay.
And by breathing in, I go about 8 seconds in through my nose and 8 seconds out through my nose. It also quiets the racing thoughts. When I climbed into that barrel, you guys, my mind was like, get out, get out, get out, get out. This is cold, this is cold, this is cold. Get out, get out, get out, get out, get out. It's sounding the alarm. As long as I'm focused on my breathing, my thoughts aren't racing. It's pretty amazing how this is a technique you can use to take control. And I think even without the cold exposure, when your thoughts are racing, put your hands right here on your vagus nerve. This is an on-off switch between your fight-or-flight nervous system and your parasympathetic nervous system, which is the calm, cool, grounded in your body nervous system. Put your hands right here and just breathe in 8 seconds. And then I usually say 3 sentences. I'm okay, I'm safe, I'm loved. And if you just keep doing that over and over, breathing in and breathing out to interrupt the racing thoughts, pressing on the vagus nerve to signal to your body that you want your resting nervous system to flip back on. And if you say, I'm okay, I'm safe, I'm loved, in that moment, it's true. All right, I think that's it. Any other questions?
How's the Raynaud's when you get out?
Normally when I grocery shop, my hands turn white. And my Raynaud's has gotten better because of this. I never would have believed it. I'm the kind of person that literally, guys, when I reach in and grab French fries out of the freezer at the supermarket and I pull it out, my fingertips are numb. When I hike or ski, my toes are white. I was just in 34-degree water, and they're red. They're not white.
Will you take a hot shower now?
Probably, just to rinse off quickly and get into the day.
But there's no value or need necessarily, or that's not part of the practice?
I don't know. I honestly don't know. I mean, you feel warm, and you get this, like, adrenaline rush. If you've ever jumped in cold water, I grew up on Lake Michigan in Western Michigan, and they used to cut a hole in the ice and do these polar plunges for charity. When you jump into cold water, your whole body's like, woo! And so you get this like adrenaline rush. And so I wouldn't need to, but I just kind of want to rinse myself off. That's all.
I think the last question that has come up a lot probably for people in warm climates is how do you prepare the ice?
Well, what you could do is just run your bathtub to cold. And if you want to make it really, really ice, just buy a bag of ice at the gas station and throw it in there. But honestly, just freaking tap water that's cold is cold enough. And you'll be surprised. And in your nose and out your nose. And final thing, I'm not a doctor. I'm not a therapist. I'm a woman on a mission to literally live an amazing life, to stop feeling such sadness and negativity and heaviness in my mind and my body, and to really experience more joy and ease. And I'm just sharing everything that's working for me, everything that I'm learning as I research, as I experiment with you, in the hopes that I can save you some of the heartache and headache that I have caused myself because I didn't know any better.
There's a really powerful concept that I learned from Carrie Lorenz called span of control. And it's being borrowed as a military term. And I'm going to tell you how I've used it, okay, in order to quiet the anxiety, because I don't know about you, but when I start to get anxious about all the uncertainty, I feel my heart race. I feel my mind start to spin. I start to think about what if this, what if that, what if the other thing, what if another thing happens? And that's not helpful. Not only is it not helpful because you can't solve problems when you're in that state, it's not helpful because you start to panic. And that is super scary. And it's also not helpful because it suppresses your immune system. And so it is critical. And that's why every day at noon, we're going to be going live to help you stay connected, to give you a lifeline, to give you tools that you need so that you can deepen your compassion to yourself. You can stay calm. You can stay centered, because you are enough to deal with what's going on. You really are. You have it within you to truly not give in to the fear that this is creating, and to continue to be steady and to trust and to develop the tools that you need inside to be grounded and calm and optimistic as we move through this as a society. And so I'm going to teach you how you do it. And I'm going to reveal what I'm using to do it in real time. And I'm going to share with you what's going on in our family as we are, together in the house and limiting what we're doing. And I want to do this because I want you to turn inward in this time. And so let me go back to my story. I know I'm a little bit all over the place. So I get home, there's nobody here. And in a time of crisis, where do you want to be? With your family. You want to be somewhere safe. And so borrowing this term span of control, what is it? Well, it's a term. Carrie Lorenz happened to be the first F-14 Tomcat pilot in the history of the United States. And she's one of my dear friends. And the military term span of control is this idea that when you're in a crisis, which you're in right now, because there's so much uncertainty, you're okay right now, but there's so much uncertainty out there. In order to calm your anxiety and focus your mind, you've got to narrow your span of control. And the way that I did that for myself is very simple. I want you to pick 3 things today that you need to do that will make you feel safe, and that will make you feel safe regarding your family or safer, and that will make you feel a little bit more prepared for being still or being isolated for the next 3 weeks. Let's just start there, okay? And I want you to write those in the comments. What do you need to do? 3 things in order for you to feel safe, in order for your family to feel a little bit safer, and in order for you to feel like you could be where you are or get to the place you need to get to, so that if you were just sitting there for 3 weeks, you were going to be good, okay? Just focusing on those 3 things was super helpful for me because it meant I don't need to worry about whether or not they're grounding domestic air travel right now. I don't need to worry about whether or not Walt Disney is closed. I don't need to worry about what's going to happen in May or June. Already my talk show's been canceled. Already I've had numerous speaking events canceled. Already my kids' colleges have been canceled. Already all kinds of stuff has happened. But I don't need to worry about that, and neither do you. You need to worry about what's one step you can take in order to feel safe, what's one step you can take to make your family safe, and what's one step you can do to be prepared. Those 3 things are within your span of control. Again, we don't know if society is prepared, but you can be prepared mentally. So what did I do? First of all, to keep myself safe, I made sure and got to Trader Joe's and I stocked up, not selfishly, not crazy tons of stuff, but just enough so that if we needed to, be here at the house for up to 3 weeks, that we would be fine. The second thing that I did is I immediately got Chris and Oakley and my daughter in California on planes. They're all flying today and will be home tonight. The third thing that I did is I just connected with my friends to make sure that they were okay. And that's all that's in my span of control right now. Oh, I know the other thing that I did. I connected with my dad and mom, and they were in Florida, and they're now driving back to Michigan. Why? Well, because I think we all feel much better knowing that if something happens and they need to be quarantined or isolated, which I think, honestly, the way that I'm operating, everybody, is when you plan, you're in control. So I'm planning for the United States to be operating the way that Italy is, in a complete lockdown, in order to contain and level this thing out, which is what I think should happen. We should do it sooner rather than later. I'm operating like that because it is lessening my anxiety because I'm taking control. So knowing that my parents are going home, knowing that my kids are getting back here and my husband and son are getting back here and we've moved up their flights, knowing that I've got enough food without being a greedy stockpiler to get us through the next 3 weeks, knowing that spring is coming, I can now calm down and focus on the opportunity of this. Because I think that this is the one time in your life you will likely go through something like this. And tell me one time that you went through a challenge and it didn't make you stronger. Every single challenge you face in your life makes you a stronger person. And this is going to be exactly the same way. So now that I have a plan, because I've narrowed my span of control to my safety, my family's safety, and getting prepared, now I can focus on how to turn in and be positive and be optimistic and to be centered. And here's the other thing. I think it's really important right now, if you're a single parent or if you're disconnected from your family, I think it's really important to ask out for help. Really important to ask for help right now. I'm sure that there are students in your area that are displaced. I'm sure that there are neighbors that are scared to go to the grocery store. So if you're disconnected from your parents and you're not near them and you can't travel to them, maybe you can call somebody that lives near them to go to the grocery store for them. Maybe you can order something on Amazon and send it to them. There are ways for you to take action, which is what's going to calm you down in order to be prepared and to feel safe. So that's what I'm going to be doing every day at noon. I'm going to feel a lot better when my husband and son and 2 daughters walk in the door tonight. But you need to have perspective that this is going to pass. You need to be patient with everybody that you come in contact with. And once you've handled your safety and your family's safety and you feel that you've prepared yourself to be able to be quiet and to be isolated for 3 or 4 weeks, now you can turn inward and start to look at this as an opportunity. Because I honestly think it is an opportunity. It's an opportunity to not get lost in fear. It's an opportunity to go through this with your spirit and your compassion and your kindness leading you. It's an opportunity for you to deepen your connections with yourself and with your family members and with your friends. It's an opportunity, if you are a small business, to think about innovating. And it's an opportunity for you to do some of those creative projects, to slow down a little bit, to invest in your growth by reading more and by taking on projects and being with your family. And if right now you're scared and you're alone, this is a moment to ask for help. So anxiety, first and foremost, everybody, it's a very important thing to have in life. Yes, you heard Mel Robbins say that. Anxiety is really important because all that anxiety is an internal alarm system that is hardwired in your nervous system. And that alarm system has one job. The alarm system called anxiety has the job of making you pay attention. That's it. There is some kind of threat, some kind of uncertainty. When anxiety races through your body, you come alive and you go into a state of hyperfocus. Your nervous system switches into your sympathetic nervous system. You immediately go on edge. Your spidey senses come up. Your prefrontal cortex engages. Your heart starts to race. All of this, by the way, tied to evolution to keep you safe. Anxiety is a good thing when there is an actual threat. Yeah. So for example, let's say, Scott, that you and I are driving down the road and we're chatting up a storm and we're driving, to go do a speech or whatever. And all of a sudden, out of nowhere, a semi truck cuts right into our lane and you have to swerve, right, to get out of the way. As that semi truck, Scott, cuts into our lane. What do you feel in your body?
A rush of adrenaline, fear for my life. I need to take immediate control over my safety because that driver doesn't know I'm alive or he wouldn't have cut in my lane.
Yeah, like immediately anxiety rips through your body, and anxiety is serving a purpose. It's sounding the alarm so that you stop talking to me and you pay attention. And all of a sudden your brain takes over, you swerve without even thinking about it, and your heart races, and all the blood runs to your major organs so that you can go into a state of hyperfocus. The reason why people feel nervous or anxious or excited before a test or before a speech is because you're going into a state of hyperfocus. Anxiety, that feeling in your body, is now making you align with what you're about to do so you can focus on it and perform. In the example that I just gave you, anxiety served a purpose. And here's what's interesting. As the truck pulls away and you kind of pull back into your lane, what happens in your body now that the truck is gone and we're driving down the road safely?
In my body or my wife's body?
In your body.
Well, in my body, I would, that anxiety probably stays for a little while, not for an hour, but probably, 45 seconds or so as I begin to calm down and kind of put it into context, and we're safe, we're alive, it's not going to happen again probably immediately. So I probably recover pretty quickly, but there's a lingering effect.
Yeah, and you're absolutely right about the 45 seconds, because it is less than 90 seconds that most people switch from one emotional state to the other when there's intellectual context. So your body starts to slow down and it goes from the on-edge state, alert state, into what's called the parasympathetic state, which is your kind of rest and relax state, in about 90 seconds, because your brain sees the truck leave and your brain goes, oh, no threat. The problem for people today, and this is true of everybody on your team, is that we have been living in a heightened state of uncertainty. And every single person on the planet, their nervous system right now is either flipped into the fight or flight mode of feeling on edge, or it's like a trigger, immediately flips into it. And so the normal things that somebody wouldn't stress out, they're super stressed out. And this is important to understand, because I want you to, as a leader, to think about, first, let's talk about work. Assume that most people are at the end of their rope. They're trying the best that they can. They are burning the candle at both ends. They're having a hard time focusing and concentrating. And they're feeling uncertain and on edge. Because even if their work life is good, there's something going on with their kids at college. There's something going on with their kids in the high school. There's something going on with somebody in their family. And, the spike in this sense of anxiety, the spike that we're seeing in terms of people's mental health is extraordinary. And I'm sure you're hearing the same thing from corporations that I'm hearing, which is that the number one concern that people have right now at the highest level in every single company, whether they're publicly traded or they're a small family business, is the well-being of their employees. And so one thing that you can do is, number one, you can encourage people to take time off. Number two, you can consciously, as a leader, make a strategic and intentional decision to move out of the mode that your company has been in for probably 2 years, because there are 3 phases to this pandemic that has impacted every corporation on the planet and every leader on the planet. Phase number 1 was life as it used to be, right? Because when the pandemic first hit, it was sort of like, oh my gosh, what's changing about life as it used to be? What life as it used to be? We're going to go back to the way life used to be. Phase number 2 was full-on crisis. Oh my gosh, we're in this. Yeah. And what you saw is an anxiety response from every single company on the planet, because we had to. Everything got turned upside down. The rules got rewritten overnight. Everybody had to pivot and to innovate and to switch and to innovate. Like, it was incredible. And there was so much amazingness that came out of it.
There's going to be, when we look back on this period, this is going to be one of the most rapid periods of innovation and disruption in a very positive way when it comes to business operations, the way that people work, like all kinds of stuff. But one of the disruptions that has been horrible for people is that companies immediately jumped to nonstop video conference calls. And what has happened for human beings who are working hybrid or working remote is that people feel like they need to always be online. And there are lots of companies that also still have a policy 2 years later that your camera is required to be on. This is a horrible thing to be doing to people. And the reason why it's a horrible thing to be doing to people is, number one, it communicates mistrust, which makes somebody who's already stressed out feel even worse. But number two, based on the brain science, here's what we know. If you're on a video conference call and you're staring at yourself, having to stare at yourself activates this part of your brain, Scott. When the prefrontal cortex is engaged, the rate at which you drain the fuel in your brain increases dramatically. The reason why it is so difficult for everybody to be productive right now, for everybody to focus, the reason why people feel more anxious, the reason why people feel more distracted, the reason why people feel like, my gosh, it's 1 o'clock in the afternoon and I feel like I need 3 martinis and a nap. Like I have 4 more hours for the rest of the day or 10. The reason is because you are having to work in an environment that is triggering stress and anxiety and being on edge. Staring at yourself all day on camera is draining the fuel in your brain. And companies reacted so like panic mode that they haven't pulled back yet and stepped into phase 3 of the pandemic, which is, this is the new reality. Let's stop pretending there is some sort of milestone that is out in the future that's going to solve all this. And let's get strategic and let's get intentional about how we're going to work, because everything in the company can't be important or else nothing is. And every meeting can't be 50 people on a Zoom call because nobody can get work done. And we need to go back to getting intentional and strategic about what's important and going back to the basics of making sure people's weekly jobs are aligned with what matters. And we need to allow people and trust them to get their work done. That's one thing that you can do as a leader. Less Zoom calls, more appreciation, and cameras off. That's going to help people a ton when it comes to anxiety at work. The other thing that will help people a ton is triple down on appreciation. What I've figured out in researching the high five habit and having 145,000 people from 91 countries go through a 5-day online challenge that I led about the high five habit. In 5 days, Scott, not a single person reported that this high five habit didn't work. And what I've learned in researching the power of appreciation and developing habits of encouragement is that the most motivating force on the planet is to feel appreciated, to feel like somebody sees you and hears you and actually appreciates you. And I know that you talk about this a lot. People, and we're talking about the Great Resignation, right? And companies make the mistake of thinking that people are leaving organizations because they're looking for better compensation. That's not true. People leave organizations. There was a huge McKinsey study that proved this recently. They leave organizations because they don't feel valued or appreciated, and they don't feel like they belong. And so this should be a giant red flag for every leader out there. You've got the Great Resignation. You've got people really starting to think about what they value and what matters to them. You've got a hybrid work environment where it's going to take more intentionality to make people feel like they belong and to make sure that they feel appreciated. And so you've got to make sure that this is priority number one as you head into this next year.
that the focus is on how do I make sure that people's work is getting recognized, that people feel visible, and that I am pointing out all the things they're doing right instead of harping on the thing that they're doing wrong. That is something that you can do that goes way beyond the corporate programs that people put in place. It's the basic blocking and tackling of making sure that everybody that reports to you feels appreciated by you. And it takes work. It takes a lot of work to build that as a muscle as a leader. Nicole writes, I'm an emotional eater and spender, Mel. I'm slowly getting bigger by using food as a way to numb pain. How many of you can relate to that? That there's something that you're doing that you reach for as a distraction or a way to numb your pain. Maybe you eat emotionally. Maybe you take the edge off of your stress by drinking too much every night. Maybe you rearrange the furniture in your house, or you're constantly painting the walls in your bedroom because you think if you shift things around that somehow that's going to change the bigger issues in your life. The thing about eating, drinking, having affairs, changing your furniture, shopping, porn addiction, anything that you might reach for as a distraction. The thing that's interesting about that is that all those distractions are things that you're doing, right? You're keeping yourself busy and distracted so that you don't have to pay attention to what it's like to be here. And that's one of the reasons why it's so important for you to learn how to do a mindset reset, because it doesn't matter how much you drink or eat or shop or watch porn or do drugs or cheat. All of those things are never going to improve your life, and you know it. They are delaying the inevitable, which means there's going to come a moment in time where these destructive things that you're doing, in order to numb the pain and avoid the work, they're going to come to a head. And they're going to have a catastrophic impact on your life. And you can either continue to numb the pain, and you can do things that are destructive, and you can know that you are marching toward it either imploding your health, your bank account, your sanity, your marriage, your job, your entire life, or you can face it right now, and you can start doing the powerful work. Yeah, it'll be painful in the beginning. It'll be painful because you're changing habits, but you can start doing the powerful work to change the way that you think, so that when you see food and the default way that you think is, oh, I've had a bad day. That croissant would just be awesome. Or that cookie would be amazing. Or screw it, I'll have a piece of cake tonight. I deserve, oh. If that's the default way that you numb yourself that way, the deliberate way of thinking is to start to shift. And instead of thinking that you should just eat your pain away, that you stop and you say to yourself, no, I'm becoming a healthy person. I am in control. I love myself so much, I'm going to make deliberate decisions. That's what the work of the mindset reset is. Is it going to be hard? Yeah, it's going to be hard because you're changing behavior. I mean hard not in the sense that it's difficult and you can't do it. I mean hard in the sense that it's going to feel uncomfortable. But you are capable of making these changes. You truly are. You are capable of making this happen. And so, I think it's really important that you realize that you change your life one decision at a time. And if you're getting bigger using food as a way to numb your pain, now is the time to interrupt that default before you have a heart attack, or before you get so big that it ruins your marriage or it makes you depressed. You have to make decisions now that interrupt the patterns that are destroying your life. You say, I buy my kids and husband things we can't afford all the time to make up for how inadequate I feel as a wife and mother. Let me tell you something. There's nothing that you can buy at Target or Walmart or the mall that will be better than giving your kids and your husband a wife and a mother who feels happy and proud of herself and comfortable in her own skin. I used to have that exact same pattern. When Chris and I were facing bankruptcy 10 years ago, and I felt like the world's biggest loser, and I had lost my job, and my God, it was a struggle just to buy groceries every single week, I would literally spend an hour just walking the aisles at DSW, which is the designer shoe warehouse. And I would walk the aisles and try on shoes. And occasionally I would buy a pair with money I didn't have. And, even the $23 on the sale rack was a purchase that could impact whether or not we could truly buy the groceries that we needed. Why was I doing it? Because it was an escape. Why was I doing it? Because I was so scared about the situation that we were in that it was more comfortable to pretend things were okay. It was more comfortable to go to DSW and have an hour where I pretended that I was a normal person that had my act together and that could afford to do that. But the truth is, here's the hard truth. Yeah, it felt comfortable to escape for a second, but doing that wasn't going to change anything. It was going to make it worse, and it did. What I needed to be doing with that exact same hour is I needed to be looking for a job. I needed to be exercising and taking care of my body. I needed to be calling friends and asking for moral support. I needed to be working on my resume. And intellectually, I knew that. But just like you, Nicole, I was choosing the thing that was the escape. And part of doing a mindset reset is recognizing the patterns that you are actively engaged in, like overeating and spending money that you don't have, that come from a default negative limiting belief that you aren't good enough. If you are good enough, what are you doing? You're not going to DSW. You're not reaching for the food that's making you huge. You're not buying things that you don't need. Because if you start to tell yourself that you're good enough, the second that you feel yourself driving to Walmart to buy stuff that you don't need for your husband and your kids, you can say, wait a minute. I'm good enough as the person that I am. I don't need to go to Walmart and buy things to prove that I'm not good enough for my kids and my husband. In fact, I'm going to do a U-turn and I'm going to go home and I'm going to go make cupcakes because I'm good enough. I don't need to buy anything to prove it. You see, it begins with your willingness to spot the limiting belief. And you did. You said, I feel inadequate. And now the way that you switch to feeling worthy is you not only interrupt the thought, I'm not good enough. You insert a new thought, which is, I am awesome and I am getting better every day. And then you start to substitute behaviors that align with you believing that you're good enough. So let me explain. I want you to go through your day, Nicole. And for those of you, how many of you feel like you're not worthy? How many of you feel and can admit, you have the courage to admit that you either engage in drinking, in drugs, in cheating, in shopping, in moving furniture around, in eating bad, whatever it may be, there's something that you're reaching for as a distraction. Another one, getting angry at people all the time. Like that you're the kind of person that gets triggered so easily that you get angry. It's always everybody else's fault. It's always everybody else's fault. Like that's another form of distraction, everyone, is when you constantly think other people are to blame. And so if this is how many of you can admit that? And if it's coming from a place of being unworthy, here's the coaching. You're going to have to submit, you're going to have to do the think this, not that exercise. And Danielle and Mandy, who are producing this with me, can you please tell me what day we covered that so that we can tell you what day video to go back and watch? How you think this right now, the limiting belief, I'm not worthy. And we want to substitute you to think that. I am doing the best I can. I'm awesome at being a mom. I am worthy of my husband and my children's love just as I am. That's an example of the kind of thing you can substitute. Then here's what I want you to do, Nicole, and every one of you that has this issue, you engage in behaviors that prove that you don't think you're good enough. January 4th was the live training on how you think this, not that, okay? So just go to either melrobbins.com/mindset reset. You'll get a link to all of them, or go to our YouTube channel and look at the training from January 4th, okay? So I want you to make a list of all the things that you do when you feel unworthy, okay? This is called if-then planning, and it is proven by science when you create an if-then plan. If I feel this, then I'm going to do that. You're 67% more likely to actually follow through on the plan if you have pre-made your plan. So Nicole, and every one of you that feels unworthy and you're doing stuff that you know is sabotaging your health, your success, your marriage, everything, I want you to go through your day and identify all the things that you do when you don't feel good enough. All the self-sabotaging behavior. Now I want you to create an if-then plan. If I feel myself reaching for the crappy food, then I'm going to do this instead. I'm going to walk out of the kitchen. I'm going to pop a piece of gum in my mouth. I'm going to say, I'm worthy. I don't need this scoop of ice cream. Then do that for all your triggers. And now it's going to be a mindset reset. Remember, it's a process, not an event. When you catch yourself driving to Walmart or DSW, whoa, 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 here I go. If I catch myself driving to DSW, then I'm going to turn the car around and I'm going to call a friend on my way back home. That's what I'm going to do. And you'll be shocked at how it works when you have a plan in place to interrupt the self-sabotaging behavior and insert something that's positive. Hey, it's Mel. Thank you so much for checking this video out. And if you like this one, I have a feeling you're going to like this one too. I'll see you there.